I'm Peter Whitmore, 73, and what I'm going to lay out for you in the next few minutes, I wish somebody had grabbed me by the collar and forced me to hear when I was younger. I'm not exaggerating. Sit tight, don't skip ahead, because every single one of these hits different when you actually stop and think about it. I've watched people, myself included, torpedo perfectly decent lives over the same handful of mistakes. Not dramatic ones, not the kind that make headlines, quiet ones. The kind that eat you from the inside over 10, 20, 30 years until you look around and wonder how you ended up so far from where you meant to be. Here are 10 of them, and I guarantee at least 3 will make you uncomfortable. Number 1, treating your body like it'll send you an invoice later. It won't send an invoice, it'll send a verdict. I smoked from age 16 to 44, 28 years. Not because I enjoyed it toward the end, but because quitting felt like too much trouble. You know what else is trouble? A cardiologist telling you at 57 that your arteries look like rusty pipes. Nobody in their 30s or 40s believes their body is keeping score. It is. Every skipped meal replaced with garbage, every night of 4 hours sleep, every decade on the couch. I had a colleague, Dennis, who ran marathons at 40 and thought he was bulletproof. At 52, his back gave out so badly he couldn't tie his own shoes for 6 months, not from running, from 20 years of sitting in a desk chair 8 hours a day and never stretching once. Your body doesn't forget, it just waits. Number 2, picking comfort over honesty with the people closest to you. My brother Ray and I didn't speak for 11 years. 11. Over something so stupid, I'm almost embarrassed to say it. He borrowed money from our mother without telling me, I found out, and instead of saying, Ray, that bothered me, here's why, I froze him out, just stopped calling. Thanksgiving came and went without a word. His kids grew up not knowing their uncle, and the whole time I told myself I was the one who'd been wronged, so it was his job to fix it. You know what that is? That's cowardice, dressed up as pride. I could have picked up the phone any Tuesday afternoon and said 5 honest words. I didn't. We finally reconciled when he had his hip replaced, and his wife called me from the hospital. 11 years of silence over a conversation that took about 40 minutes once we actually had it. Number 3, measuring yourself against people who aren't even playing the same game. My neighbor in the 80s, Frank DeLuca, bought a boat. Beautiful thing. Sat in his driveway on a trailer. He used it maybe 6 times in 4 years. But every Saturday he'd be out there waxing it, and every Saturday I'd stand at my kitchen window feeling like a failure because I couldn't afford one. A boat I didn't even want. I didn't fish back then. I got seasick on anything bigger than a bathtub. But Frank had one and I didn't, and somehow that translated in my brain to me falling behind. Behind what? Behind who? There was no race. I invented one and then got upset. I wasn't winning it. We do this constantly. Promotions, houses, vacations, cars, even our kids' report cards, comparing your chapter 4 to somebody else's chapter 12. It's a game with no winner, and it'll drain every drop of satisfaction from what you actually have. Number 4, believing you'll get around to the important stuff once things calm down. Things don't calm down. They shift. New problems replace old ones. New obligations fill every gap the old ones left behind. I told myself for 15 years that I'd learned to play piano. My grandmother had a beautiful upright in her parlor, and I used to sit on the bench as a kid and press the keys, and she'd say, Petey, you've got the hands for it. 15 years of next year. Then my knees went bad, then my eyes needed surgery, then there was the thing with the roof, then the thing with my son's tuition, and suddenly I'm 73 and the piano is theoretical. I did eventually start lessons at 68, by the way. I'm awful. Genuinely terrible. My instructor, a very patient woman named Linda, once told me I had the rhythm of someone trying to walk on ice, but I'm awful and happy about it, which is more than I can say for the decades I spent waiting for the perfect moment that was never going to arrive. Number 5, holding on to a version of yourself that expired years ago. I was a varsity wrestler in high school, 154 pounds, conference semi-finalist, proudest moment of my adolescence. I was still bringing it up at dinner parties in my 50s. My daughter once said, gently, "Dad, that was 35 years ago. She wasn't being cruel. She was right." I'd been so attached to who I was at 17 that I hadn't bothered becoming anyone interesting since. Your past accomplishments are fine as memories. They're terrible as an identity. Number 6, surrounding yourself with people who only show up when things are good. I had a circle of guys I played cards with every other Friday for about 12 years. Good times, plenty of laughs, a lot of cold beer and bad jokes. When my business partner cleaned out our shared account and disappeared to Arizona in '96, not one of them called. Not one. I'm not talking about grand gestures. I didn't need anyone to fix my problems. I mean a simple, "Pete, you all right? You need anything?" Nothing. Silence. The following Friday, cards resumed like nothing happened, and when I brought it up, trying to be casual about it, one of them said, "We figured you'd rather not talk about it." No, they'd rather not hear about it. There's a big difference between those two things. Fairweather people aren't bad people. Most of them don't even realize what they're doing. But building your entire social world around them is like constructing a house with no foundation. Everything looks fine until the first real storm, and then you're standing in rubble wondering why nothing held. Number 7, letting resentment become your default setting. After my business partner vanished with the money, I carried that rage around like a backpack full of rocks. For years, I'd bring it up unprompted. At barbecues, at family dinners, at the dentist's office. My wife at the time, Susan, finally said to me, "Peter, you're giving that man free rent in your head, and he's not even paying utilities." She was right. Resentment doesn't punish the person who wronged you. It just poisons your own days. I'm not telling you to forgive everyone who's ever hurt you. Some things don't deserve forgiveness, but carrying them around every single day is a choice, and it's one that costs you more than it costs them. Number 8, treating every disagreement like a battle you need to win. I argued with my son about his college major for an entire summer. He wanted to study art history. I wanted him in business or engineering. Something practical, something with a clear paycheck at the end. I made spreadsheets, pulled salary data, presented my case like a prosecutor going after a conviction. He listened politely, nodded, and enrolled in art history anyway. Graduated, worked at a museum for 8 years, now runs educational programming for a non-profit, and genuinely loves what he does every morning. Meanwhile, I spent a whole summer damaging our relationship, making him feel like his interests weren't valid over a decision that was never mine to make in the first place. Not every hill is worth dying on. Most hills aren't even worth climbing. Number 9, confusing being busy with being productive, or worse, with being valuable as a human being. I wore busyness like a medal for decades. 60-hour weeks, weekends at the office. Couldn't sit still on a Sunday afternoon without feeling guilty, like resting was something I hadn't earned yet. And for what? Half those hours were wasted motion. Meetings that should have been phone calls that should have been emails, tasks I insisted on doing myself because delegating felt like admitting I couldn't handle it. I was spinning my wheels at top speed and calling it progress. The busiest years of my life produced the least meaningful results. The years where I slowed down, made deliberate choices, actually paused and thought before acting, those were the years things genuinely moved forward. Busyness is not the same as purpose, and it took me an embarrassingly long time to understand that. Number 10. Waiting for some future version of your life to start being grateful for what's here right now. This one took me the longest to learn. I spent my 30s waiting for my 40s when I'd supposedly have more money. I spent my 40s waiting for my 50s when the kids would be grown and I'd finally have breathing room. Spent my 50s waiting for retirement, convinced that's when real life would begin. And when retirement finally came, I sat in my kitchen on the first Monday morning, coffee getting cold, staring at a calendar with nothing on it, and thought, now what? I'd been so focused on getting somewhere that I'd sleepwalked through the actual trip. Every stage of life has something in it worth noticing, not in a greeting card way, in a real, specific, ordinary way. The sound of your house when everyone's asleep, a meal that turned out better than expected, a Thursday when nothing went wrong and nobody needed anything from you. Those aren't small things, those are the actual substance of a life. We just don't recognize them because we're too busy scanning the horizon for something bigger that may never show up. Look, I'm not standing here pretending I've figured everything out. At 73, I'm still catching myself making half of these mistakes on a regular basis. But the difference between making them at 30 and making them now is that now I can see them for what they are. And that's what I'm offering you. Not perfection, just a head start. Pick one of these 10, just one, whichever one made your stomach tighten a little, and do something about it this week. Not a grand overhaul, one conversation, one phone call, one small correction. That's how things actually change. Not in explosions, in adjustments. That's all I've got for today.